Now we're 18th in achievement. I think that's really something to celebrate, and it's a testament to the work that people are doing with very few resources. But if you'll notice, really what hasn't changed or has even gotten worse, once again, is over to the right, you've got the finance part. Our state had a D minus in 2018. We still have a D minus and are ranked 51st out of 51st according to this metric. People measure those things just a little bit differently, but I wanted to give you several different sources to say that, this is not just a money-hungry superintendent trying to find skewed data. Across the board, it doesn't matter who you ask. Nevada is at the bottom of how we fund education, even though achievement has improved. Okay, so what does all this mean? If the achievement and social emotional goals are in the top 15, which is what our State Board of Education has laid out as the vision for 2026, but funding is still down here, what is the likelihood that we're going to see the changes that we actually want to see? Especially if we don't change what some of those measures are that I talked about at the beginning. On Tuesday nights, my choir performed the Star Spangled Banner at the home basketball games that we had. And that's the best part of my day. I love teaching that class every day. I've had a number of your students who have come through. It's wonderful. I can promise you that in my inspirational and motivational speech that I gave to them before their performance, at no time did I say, let's just shoot for being average. Let's go out and sing the Star Spangled Banner and let's not suck. I did not say that. But really what we're looking at is, can we even get to average funding in this state? And if we could get to average funding at $4,000 additional dollars per student, what type of a difference would that make in some of those authentic learning experiences that I described at the beginning of this presentation? Now, in conclusion, really, what I want to acknowledge is that we are in a positive revenue cycle right now in our state. And if you looked at former Governor Sisolak's statements about the budget that he proposed, what Governor Lombardo has said about moving forward and kind of his informal remarks and such, there's going to be an increase in the education budget this year because the money exists. What the Invest platform does is it bases its work and its aspirations on the Commission for School Funding's recommendations that change the revenue calculations in stream long term. So it's easy, because we're in a positive revenue cycle, to get lulled into sleep of, oh, there's going to be more education revenue this year. Everything's okay. But because the budget's good this year, it doesn't mean it'll be good in 3 years. And what the Commission has done, which this is the short version of their recommendations. There's a much lengthier version. And it's thorough. But what it does is it provides the legislature with ideas about how they can change the tax structure so that it is not overwhelmingly impactful on any of us. Education is mostly funded through property taxes, but moves us forward so that we can get some of the outcomes that we actually say that we want in our state. It takes resources. So I just want to be clear in saying that while the revenue, there's a revenue overage in this particular cycle, it doesn't solve the problem. These changes that the Commission outlines and that the Invest platform kind of summarizes in a very brief form, this is a super, super serious and long-lasting, impactful for my children, my grandchildren, your grandchildren, generations. It has to change that. So what we're asking for as superintendents and as school districts is support. We all say that we want better educational outcomes. I don't doubt that. I think everybody does want that. I hope that in my work in this community, I have established enough trust with all of you to say that we're doing our best with what we have. If we want substantial changes, we do need more resources. And so it comes down to, if we're saying that we want those, are we willing to actually put our money where our mouth is? Because it's one thing to say it and expect it, but then we don't do anything about it. So the reason that I am here tonight, along with my board members and our CFO, is to say, will you partner with us? And Mr. Trask, you can advance a couple slides there for me. Because what we want, the message that we want to send is that these things need to change, the measures need to change, and the funding streams need to change so that we can do what we're being asked to do. And we need as broad-based support as we get on that as we go to the legislature and talk with them about how important it is to make these changes. So I have asked the council to consider a resolution. I also have a kind of a template letter that I would like to invite any person in this room to adapt and make your own and send to Governor Lombardo and send to our legislative delegation, emphasizing not just as a commissioner, but as an individual, how important this is for our future, how important it is for our economic viability, and for just the social community that we want to have in the state of Nevada. So that's it. Questions?
I have a question. I'm completely on board with the assessment earlier in the presentation about the need for a lot of these things. It was art and addressing these other concerns of the students. But I have a little red flag come up when we talk about wanting to get away from testing and using that as a metric, because as an adult who works, pretty much my entire existence is tests and can I pass it or not. I mean, I have probably 10 certifications that require annual or biannual recertifications that are tests, and the sheriff's deputies are tested to become deputies. Your own teachers have to take tests to be able to become teachers. I mean, and it's not a simple process. And I'm wondering, and maybe I just missed the connection there, but is all of this being put in with the effort to be able to do that? Because the world is that. I mean, it's not kind of extracurriculars and all that, even though I think those are important, as certainly a defender of music and the arts and everything else is a big participator in that myself. But is there a connection there? Because that's the real preparation for college and work and everything else.
I appreciate the question, and to try to be more clear than I was when I described that. I don't think that my position as an educator is not that tests need to go away. Mm-hmm. It's that that's not all there is. And especially in the model of the particular vendor that we use right now. Again, I'd invite Mr. Trask to speak up on this if he wants to, but taking one test that judges an entire school year's worth of learning, I would argue, is there something that does that in the real world? I mean...
Well, I think just about everything does.
I don't know.
I take, if I'm going to become a lawyer, there's one test that determines whether or not I get a practice.
But you get to take that test again.
Oh, sure.
Right.
I think students take this test again with them.
Not for that year, though. I was going to say, it's a one and done for that year.
Sure.
And the results come back, again, 6 months later. So, your example of the bar exam is a great one. You get your results. I'm sure that there is a time lap there. I don't know what it is, because I've never taken the bar exam. But you also get that feedback so that you can prepare and put in the time to take it again and pass it. And even that would be an improvement on the model that's being used right now.
Sure.
So that's what I think the position is on that, Robertson. And I appreciate the question, because it's not, and the opportunity to clarify my position is that I don't think any test should go away. I think that there can be far less time spent on some of the ones that are mandated for us right now, and that there are tests that are closer to the student's level. And what I mean by that is there's a level of bureaucracy that exists in this model right now, where the test is here, and then clear down here is the student. And the student sees no relevance in that test. They just don't. So the more relevant we can make those opportunities, and tests are part of that, it's just that they're not the limiting factor in the way that I see what education needs to be. So does that clarify that? Of course.
Can I add just a little to that also? You know, it's different when you're an adult and you've taken the test and you've been able to prepare however you need to and what works for you. But a 9-year-old doesn't have control of what's going on in their life, and they come in one day and they hear from us, you have to do your best today. I don't know if they ate breakfast, I don't know what they heard at the dinner table the night before. That's an awful lot of responsibility. And you wonder why at the state level do we give one test all year long, but we're testing our kids all year long to see their progress, but no one sees that. You know, and it's do or die, and they're kids.
And I would kind of like to echo that too, is part of the current system, part of the problem is it doesn't really measure growth in the sense that they have an expected growth, but if you don't meet that, even if the kid makes growth, they could be in the 98th percentile, they expect a 90th percentile growth, that kid still is a failure in state size. So it's not really looking at like, as when you're in that classroom, you can see the kid go from point A to point B, and you're like, man, this kid has made some growth, and then that one test is like, no, he failed. So it's disheartening as a teacher when you get the data back 6 months, you're like, man, he really did it amazing, but they still count that as a failure. That's all.
Once again, thank you so much. And again, those price tags there, like I recognize it's easy to get sticker shock, but the thing that I would just encourage you to keep in mind is where is Nevada spending compared to what other states are spending on education, and do we value it enough to make that commitment? So thank you so much. I appreciate your support. I'm so thankful for the work that you do, for the support that you provide us, for the staff that's here, and appreciate your leadership in this.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the?
So Adam, you're leaving us with all of that, the templates and so forth.
Yes, Ms. Lee has the templates. I think did I send you the template letter too, or no?
No, but the resolutions next
Okay.
item on the agenda for consideration.
Thank you, Councilwoman Harper. I'll send that draft letter as well to Ms. Lee, and it's just there as ideas. You can, as an individual, obviously edit it and change it to say whatever you want to. So thank you for the support.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, we'll move on to item 2. Mayor Robertson, discussion for possible action, approval of resolution 2023-02 in support of school funding and school construction 2023.
I'd like to make that motion, but if I can, I just want to add just a couple more things, just to show you how important it is. I have a son like Adam did. My son lasted 5 years of teaching, and the minute he walked out the door, his salary tripled. And he was a good teacher, but there were just so many things going on. And the other thing is, I don't think people think there's always going to be school, but we are collapsing. When you are looking at becoming a teacher now, you're trying to find that state or those school districts that have the highest test scores, because we're breathing on you so heavily as administrators to make sure our kids are getting what they're doing and make sure they're doing well, but we're not paying you. So now we're really experiencing teachers skipping around and not wanting to stay anywhere because it's, well, I can make $5,000 more here next year, and even though I've only been here 1 year, I can make $9,000 more and get a bonus. And we don't even look at that. We're just happy to have you, because all across the nation, you would not believe how many teaching positions are not filled by teachers. So this is just so important, and I know I'm proud to be a part of the district because, you know, being an integral part of seeing what's going on, we do a little bit with a lot. I do a lot with a little bit, excuse me. So I am in favor of that, I make that motion.
We have a motion for approval of this resolution from Councilwoman Williams Harper. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilman Trask. Is there further discussion on this? I think it's well written. I appreciate you bringing it forward. I'm certainly happy for the council and the city to support this. I do think our funding certainly needs to increase by a substantial amount. So, if there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries so ordered. Item passes 5-0. We've been going for an hour and a half, so we're going to recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll call this meeting back to order. Looks like we're on item 6 under new business. Councilman Trask, discussion only, first reading proposed ordinance 748, bill number 2023-01, adding chapter 16, social use venues, to title 3 of the Ely Municipal Code to permit licensing of cannabis consumption lounges, and amending title 3, chapter 15 to permit indoor consumption in approved locations. I believe there's a draft in the packet. Discuss.
I just want to bring up something. I've been working with Leo. I was wishing he was here. I understand why he's not here. Going through this, we talked about it quite a bit. We did discover that right now, the way it's worded, probably excludes independent consumption lounge. So there's, under the consumption lounges, there's 2 aspects. There's a retail one and an independent one. The retail has to be connected to one that's already. Independent one would license, or they would contract with one, so that in this case, obviously I would contract with Curly, since it's the only one in town. But the way it's worded right now, it can't, Leo's aware of that. We wanted just to have this discussion tonight, but he's working on a slightly different draft to make sure that both that have been passed by the state are allowed according to our ordinance.
Well, Tara, what you're talking about, is it, can you pinpoint it in there?
Yeah, I sure can. So if you go to unlawful acts, which is 3-16-9, which is on page 5. The one that says, where is that? Oh, right there, D, sorry, D, where it says allow the consumption of marijuana or marijuana products within the view. No, not that one, sorry. Oh, sorry, C, that's one. Sell, provide, and distribute marijuana or marijuana products within or on the premise of social venue, So that one right there, how that would work for the independent is they would have to buy it from Curaleaf or whoever they contracted through. And then the way the state has worded the bill, they're allowed to sell that product there. So Leo and I have been working on that. So he would have to kind of adjust that one. I did learn that my naivety between marijuana product and marijuana paraphernalia, because up in the beginning, it talks about how the paraphernalia is allowed, which would be the consumption of it, but not the selling of it. So he's gonna have to take out that unlawful part of it, just so that we don't exclude independent consumption lounges. So that's the piece that we're working on, that 3-16-9 part C. So talking to Leo, this pretty much came from Clark County, so he's kind of working, he kind of copied this from Clark County or other around the state, and then so we're just working on that. But he wanted us to make sure we had this on there to discuss it tonight. But he's aware of that situation.
So reading through this, what I still don't quite have my mind wrapped around is if there is a social venue, like the space or places like that, can they apply for a lounge permit? Or is this intended for places connected to retail establishments?
There's 2 different ones. There's a retail one that is connected to it,
Okay.
and then there's an independent one that another outside, but they'd have to go through, they still have to be approved by the cannabis board and everything like that. But you can, yeah, there's 2 of them. There's an independent board that's connected to the retail one, so.
And I don't believe you could have the space sell alcohol and cannabis, like there,
Yeah, no,
you
that's
only could do cannabis there. so it's just cannabis. So the space could never sell cannabis and alcohol.
And then you're saying they would have a venue that got this permit, if they weren't also retailers, they would have to contract with the licensed retailer in the city.
Yeah, and it's not really a venue, it would be like a business instance, like a space is not gonna do on a weekend and like that, it'd have to be an established business, you know, like.
For the sole purpose of doing.
Yeah,
this
exactly, the
activity.
sole purpose of this, yeah, it's not like they're just gonna like, I can do it in.
I mean, I'm all, I kind of understand the position we're in and having to do this at this point, but I still don't quite understand the economics of even having to, of someone who would want to do that, I still don't. And I guess that's not my problem, that's whoever wants to do this is problem.
Right, and I think part of it too is, as we talked about when we had Leo move forward with this, is we just kind of want to make sure it was on there. We also talked about the fact that this actually happening is going to be tricky because the state issued their 20 that are there. So the state allowed 20 licenses, they've already issued them, but there is clauses in there that more can be issued and this and that. So it's more of just making sure that we have our ducks in a row. If it does happen, this isn't obviously saying, yep, this is going to happen tomorrow. No, it's a long ways away. I just want to make sure that the city's kind of has their ducks in a row. It's going to come, you know, and that's kind of where this ordinance comes. It's not granting anything. It's simply just saying, hey, we're going to make this provision, and we're going to do that. So.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things on the state end as far as you have to have a contract with a taxi company or rideshare, that you have to have transportation available.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. So I'll be honest, I read more legal things than I thought I'd ever read in my life.
Craig, you need to mute your phone.
Okay. I think you can mute him as
Yeah.
There you go. Is there any other discussion on this item or anything else you'd like to add? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on from this item. Thank you for your work, Councilman Travis. See, item 7 and 8 were removed. That brings us to item 9. Councilman Allworth, discussion for possible action, direct city treasurer to contact the Nevada Department of Taxation for information on the purpose of the last page on city audits, dealing with business license fees and the consumer price index to be reviewed by staff and elected officials in the future council meeting.
Yeah, that's again, this last page about business license and the consumer price index. And I think, well, I don't think, I know one time during a council meeting years ago, had a city councilman arguing with the attorney about NRSs, and the attorney asked the councilman, are you a lawyer? No, you have no idea what you're talking about. I think this NRS, all these, in this packet of NRS, needs to be translated by the attorney. You know, that's what I think, but I think it still has to be done. I was hopefully, you know, Treasurer Trash, she did reach out to him, she hadn't heard back, but I think it still needs to go forward with that right there. Hopefully the taxation can come down to something quicker and briefer than 2.5 pages of NRSs that bore most people.
Were you able to hear anything back since this?
I put notice or left messages, emails. I'm getting one from that.
She says she hasn't gotten
Oh,
anything
okay.
back. And I think that has something to do with the change in administration and people still getting shook out. But I'm sure we'll hear back from sooner or later.
Soon.
Okay, well, what's the pleasure of the board on this?
I'll make the motion to have her continue with her progress, hopefully get something back quickly.
Okay, motion from Councilman Orr, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilman Carson. Is there any further discussion?
So are we just making a motion to have her keep checking in?
It's to bring back to do the research, check in, and bring back the information for the council to review on that.
And she's already contacted them, we're just waiting for a response
She's
now.
currently doing that, but this codifies it, I guess.
She was Johnny on the spot, she went ahead with it before the agenda.
Sorry.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried as ordered. Item 10, Councilman Allworth, discussion for possible action, approval to request a statement of opinion in writing from City of Ely auditors, Kennington and Christensen CPAs, as to any revenue generated by the operation or existence of the Northern Nevada Railway from Cobra Mile Post 0 to McGill Junction Mile Post 128.5 on the rail line that should be recorded in the established railroad enterprise fund and used to pay for any expenses associated with the same operation or existence of the Nevada Northern Railway from Cobra Mile Post 0 to McGill Junction Mile Post 128.5 versus commingling the revenue and expenses with other governmental activities.
Okay, basically what this is, again, the moneymaker on the agreement the city has with the railroad is those mile markers 0 to 128.5. That's where you can go into your rail car rental, there's some right-of-way agreements that go in place, that royalties crossing our line and so forth. So the statement of opinion is, again, we finally got a 45G check, $132,000 from that section of the rail line up there. So it gets, again, you know, it goes on to the discussion whether it's governmental or enterprise fund accounting. But if that, right now, and Mark would be the expert if we have to hire the CPA to do that, on rail car storage out there, it's huge, lots of money. With that being said, if we put that in the enterprise fund, it can be only used, my understanding, on the railroad mile 128, 0 to 128. So we sit there and just grabbing them, we get $500,000, it sits there, but we need to buy, with sharing with the railroad vehicles to go out there, we need a tie camper, we need this and this and this. Then we could say, railroad, you can do it all yourself, or we could contribute out of our enterprise fund. It can only be used out there, that's a known. So that's what I just would like to know from the statement of opinion, after research with Kennington and Christensen CPAs to see if that, you know, we have expense with revenue coming in, the rail car storage if it happens, royalties, so forth. It comes in, we gotta buy a pickup. Right now, individuals going out their own personal vehicles, so forth. It gets down to that to say, okay, it's gonna be an enterprise fund, then the city needs to look at this. We probably need to look at our redevelopment or a development agreement with the railroad. Maybe the city doesn't even want to be in the railroad business. You know, we're a city government. So at that time, we probably have to do a different development agreement, but we don't want the city to be out of the railroad's life because they need us for a life support for grants. So, I, for one, not gonna go out and work on a railroad, but I don't think we'll send any city staff out there. But the point is, the mile marker thing is like the last meeting Mark brought up, which was good information. He wrote a great paper on it. So it gets down to, let's let the auditors look at it, work with Mark and say, okay, because all the hassle we had with Williams, he made millions and millions. And it cost us a lot in attorney fees. So there's some benefit, especially for the railroad, if this is handled correctly. But so that's the whole deal there. You know, it gets down to whether it's governmental accounting or enterprise fund accounting. Just let the CPA on that right there.
And in my conversations with Councilman Allworth too, I think having some information would be good, because we may look at that and decide that maybe the enterprise fund isn't our best vehicle to get that done. Maybe we want to make some changes to the enterprise fund or do away with it and do something else, and we'd have to talk to Leo on what the best thing might be. But any conversation based on information, I think the treasurer has something to add there too.
Okay, so now I'm a little confused. Are you talking about the 45 tax credit that we got?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's just farther in the agenda.
Because that I've already talked to the auditors, and I explained that at our last meeting. They don't have a problem with it going either way. If this is to get a contract to talk about future revenues, I'm fine with it. But I guess I just want to clarify that this isn't going to mess up my argumentation that I've got on the.
You said the key word there, Madam Treasurer. He doesn't care which way it goes. And then I'll discuss that when we get to that point on the
I know
argumentation.
it is, but
So again, I don't know if I can talk ahead on that augmentation.
Well, for clarity, let's, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but I think what you're asking for is a written opinion on both those things, both the 45G and future revenue. Is that right?
No, I'm looking for the statement of opinion, which he stated it will be a contract to do item 10 if we go with that.
Right.
He comes back in, we get the 45G, I'm gonna ask for that to be tabled until we get his statement of opinion.
Okay.
Whether.
But his statement of opinion, I'm asking, would that be related to both the 45G and any future revenue?
Yeah, but that's where the 45G is generated, out north.
But you wanted a statement on both these future items?
Yeah, it's all hand in hand. Because if he was to
Because
sit
we've
talk to the
already
railroad
decided
expert,
on
Mark,
this.
Mark knows all the ins and outs of all that out there, I sure don't.
Because the last meeting, it was already voted to put the 45G in, to put and commit it to in the general fund for the attorney fees. That's already been approved.
For this fiscal year?
For this fiscal year. If it comes back as a problem, they will note that in the audit when they come to do it. So to me, it's two separate items, what you're wanting, that separate from an item you guys have already given me approval to do.
Correct, and I agree with that, but it can be tabled for a further date. We have not said, no. we're not gonna do it.
That's fine, but just so you know, I have to re-advertise it if we table it, I have to do that. And
Because it was advertised
I'm
in
still
last
gonna
week's
stand
paper.
by that, I don't think it's necessary. I think it needs to go through.
Well, yeah, it's easy to even go back and correct with a journal entry, but, when we get down to that item, again, I'm just one vote, to table it till we get the auditors, we'll have to do a contract with them.
Yes.
Your general fund's flush enough to handle whatever attorney fees that pop up till we got it, it's sitting right there,
So why don't we also open item 16, just so that we can have the conversation, and suppose we can motion both of those items separately, but they'll both be open. Item 16, council members, city treasurer Trask, discussion for possible action, approval of resolution 2023-01 for the purpose of augmenting the city of Yuba's general fund, using unbudgeted revenue collected in the general fund to apply towards the operating expenses in the general fund. And you have that resolution there in your packet. So,
and my motion will be on that is to table it
okay.
until we get back, because I have a different interpretation than she does on whether it should be enterprise or tax type thing,
So for clarity in the discussion, then, if we want a written opinion back, that's gonna be outside of our current contract,
Yes,
we'll be charged for it, so they'll have to bring
yes,
that in for approval, then we'll get the thing.
yes.
Okay.
But there's no reason, in my opinion, to hold off on the documentation when it can be done based off the approval that's already been approved, and still go to your auditors, or they'll be coming in as accountants on something like this to give their opinion on these revenues.
So that being the case, if they did table this, you'd have to renotice
Yes,
the resolution
yes.
in the paper, okay?
but
And in that information that you gave out, detailing the difference between, the enterprise fund, it states in there that enterprise funds can't be based off, ran off of tax credits, or off taxes. It has to be revenue generated. This is a tax credit, so to me, that right there says it can't be put into the general fund to fund the general, or the enterprise fund, just to spend it on that section. It can be used in the general fund, as we've already discussed, passed.
So,
But my point, that's why I put this out, because the last meeting we had, honestly, I don't think this table here had a clue. That's why I put this out here, for an idea to go look at it, and I could have brought more paper forward, because it's the general fund is for taxes, and this is for a business. And this is gonna be a business out north. if it goes through.
And the city's not in that business.
That's
To
exactly
me, if
right.
that's what you wanna do, to have that money go towards it and not get a revenue off.
Okay,
and not
what then?
even
I'm sorry,
bring it
what-
into
what-
the
We're off what we're currently
Okay.
talking on here, and so I just, for clarity again, the two items that we have open are the possible request to have our CPAs give an opinion on booking this revenue and future possible revenues and where it would be best to go, what would they recommend? And whether or not to approve the augmentation now or table it for 2 weeks, or until the point,
Yeah.
until the point that we have that information back, which would require renoticing, is all I would think. Okay.
Because, you know, Mr. Mayor, I just comment on the first one there, we get their statement of opinion, they may come back and say, you guys are getting into a real, are you a city or a railroad business? But we need to keep in mind, we have to keep the city involved in it for grants, you know. So that's what I'm hoping this is to come back. You know, I interpret different here, you people interpret different than me, so that's what I think the statement of opinion is so important. It could come back and say, hey, it's a no-brainer, it's gotta go this way or that.
I have a question here, I guess to you, is if we go ahead and pass the last one versus tabling the 16, and let's say we do still get an opinion, and they come back and say it should be an enterprise fund, could we then put it into the enterprise fund still, even if we got an opinion back?
Would we
So-
have to renotice in another resolution, or just goes
No.
back the other way?
It just changes the budget. I
Okay.
do a journal entry and take it out, and you don't spend, I find somewhere else to pay for that, the legal fees that are coming our way.
But the enterprise fund is the legal fees if we wanted to, but
No, she wants to put it in the general fund.
Well, no, he asked if the enterprise fund could pay the legal fees.
if we put the funding in there, it could pay the legal fees as they relate to. It
The
would-
railroad.
Well, as the
I don't know.
railroad from Miguel Junction north, it couldn't
Yeah.
pay the legal fees of anything else, is that right?
That's my take on it.
Okay. There is one.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I make a motion to approve 10 as stated, have the auditor's statement of opinion.
Okay. I have a motion, do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Motion from Councilman Howard, second from Councilman Carson, is there further discussion
Yeah,
on
so,
item number 10?
just real quick, so we're looking at 10, but we still have 16 open, yes?
Yes.
So we do want the opinion, is what we're saying, we haven't still decided about this one, what,
Right, the motion is just related to number 10 about the opinion, getting an opinion from the auditors. And it is an opinion not just related to the 45G tax credit, but of any revenues that we might get in the future from operation of that line north of Miguel Junction.
And then on number 16, it's just table, I'm not telling throw it in the garbage, just table. Until we get-
Well, we'll deal with this motion. We'll
Okay.
jump to that. So we have a motion and a second, and a question from Councilman Trask, does that answer that?
I'm just trying to figure out which comes first, chicken or egg, 10 or 16. I
I
guess.
think it's all in the same chicken coop, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if we, I don't want to vote on one and then.
As
I
stated,
feel like,
as stated by our treasurer, I don't think, no matter what happens on item 16, that would preclude us getting the opinion. And if the opinion comes some way independent of how they vote on 16, we could move that back or forth or whatever. Is that?
yeah,
Okay. So I don't think it ties our hands one way or the other, if that makes sense. Okay. So we have a motion, does that answer that question for you?
yeah, I guess one more question.
Yeah.
And this is just naive, I guess. Where are we, when we open this up, where are we paying for the CPA to give this opinion?
What's the question?
Where are we paying for this? Because it's outside their contract, so we're gonna have to pay for the CPA? Yes.
Which, bean counter will have to tell us.
I know. I mean,
Which
you would think that we might want
Yeah,
to
we're-
do the financial part of this too.
Well, if the augmentation passes, no. It,
I can't imagine that this would be
It could be,
very.
it could be journal
and I don't
anywhere.
even know how long of a process this is. If we,